أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. There's a perception of our Western world, our nation especially, that many of us may be inclined in accepting, or probably have so, which is that we over here are the ultimate, free-thinking, rational, intellectual fortress of the world, and that never before has the world seen such clarity and neutrality of thought. There is some truth to this. We can never deny the progress in research, whether it be historical, medical, or any other field. We have definitely accomplished feats as a people because of exercising our minds. But there is a dangerous coupling that has been bubbling in the background. With this achievement in pushing our intellectual boundaries and discovering what God's earth has to offer, in the enjoyment of the riches and pleasures we gained access to, our thoughts diverged, and we turned against our nature. No longer do we walk with the pure human instinct to work together for the world, and instead now we hold a much sinister outlook on life, that now it's the world's job to work for us. In our age, the ease of access to sin, the cheap pleasure of social media, excess amount of wasteful endeavors and entertainment, and living in a nation regarded as the most powerful to ever exist, all this has combined in a soup to create a vicious form of selfish independence. We thought COVID was bad, but this is an aggressive virus spreading in our midst, convincing us to shun the world as sheeps and fools and plant ourselves as the kings of our own lives, answerable and obedient to no one but ourselves. It is this notion that we are free, that we are independent. My dear audience and respected chairman, the subject of this presentation is obedience in a culture of independence. Many of our parents here migrated to this nation to build a life for themselves. They know firsthand what it means to be thrown in a culture that looks down upon religiosity and religious observance. This pit of self-assumed independence that swallows our iman, our faith, was ever looming in the back. Shaitan was waiting to taint our sincere intentions. But for the new generation, they are not thrown in this abyss, they are born in it. Obedience is, in fact, a central hallmark of a believer, of a mu'min, and of every human, that allows them to achieve and access levels of success that they could never have imagined. It is the key to not only individual success, but to our Jama'ats as well. The success of this community rests above all other endeavors. The struggle is that people of faith are born with their backs against the wall. We are mocked for our stress on obeying God, on obeying scriptural authority, on obeying His chosen ones. In reality, we have been benefiting from obedience our whole lives. And in fact, it's built into the world and nature around us. Allah Almighty says in the Holy Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تسبح له السماوات السبع والأرض ومن فيهن وإن من شيء إلا يسبح بحمده. The seven heavens and the earth and those that are therein extol His glory, and there is not a thing but glorifies Him with His praise. reflect over the creation of the world around us. Do we wake one day and instead of water, we need some other drink to survive? Do we find that in one moment we rely on cows for sustenance, and in the next they turn into man-hunting carnivores? What if the earth suddenly decided to not revolve around the sun one day? This is what it means for the heavens and the earth to praise Allah. They obey the natural path that they have been set upon. And as a result, a harmonious flow and rhythm of living is established for us. One that we study and have been mesmerized with for centuries. Isn't it interesting? We are not fascinated by that which is random, but by that what repeatedly does the same thing every day, millennia after millennia, which is nature itself. If all these things had the option to disobey, just imagine the consequences. It would be total and utter chaos and the sure ruin of the human race. Obedience is built into our bodies. If we try to concentrate on our thoughts and try to mentally block the function of our heart, will it do so? Are our bodies spontaneously combusting and flailing about, with each limb and organ wanting to be independent and establish its dominance? Of course not. There is a stable discipline and obedience to what the Creator has instituted. In the same light, if we establish the spirit of obedience inside of us, we too will gain that harmonious nature that we observe, a spiritual harmony and ease. We too will learn to balance the forces of anxiety and happiness, of frustration and joy, and learn how to take in stride all that is thrown at us and all that arises from within us. We too will become worthy of admiration and awe as nature is. Those who have achieved any notable success in this world that others wish to learn from, you will find among those elites certain patterns. Discipline and consistency are but among the most common of these. Those individuals who stick with good habits and proper routines, what are they doing? Are they not forcing themselves to obey a set of rules? Are they not restricting their freedom so as to gain long-term success by sacrificing short-term pleasures? Another common pattern is the presence of a mentor, a trainer, a guide. Again, you can place a surefire bet that those who reach further than others, they have somebody that they have given themselves up to. You can question and critique, but eventually, to push the foal, you have to give yourself up to somebody. They are elite athletes who put stipulations and conditions in their contracts that if they are to join your team, you must give employment and space to their own trainers. Obedience. They have, quote, enslaved themselves to those they have chosen as their benefactors. Only then can they assure victory and success. Without obedience, the structure of our Jama'at will lose all of its luster. The luster that gives rise to cooperation and initiative to get done whatever needs to be done. We praise the military and hold it in awe because of its ability to finish tasks with swiftness. Yes, they exchange their opinions and viewpoints, but because of the sensitivity of their task, which entails the protection of the nation, they are quick in obeying the chain of command when that time comes to act. Respected brothers, do the hearts of all those around us not need protection? Do we not feel pain that they chase one thing after another for peace and happiness? Do we not wish to tell them, stop running after that which leaves you even more empty than before? Should we not be urgent in letting them know that their answer has been here all along with their Creator and Master? Obedience is our key. If we show laxity, then the message of Islam and the true representation of Allah will be delayed in reaching the masses. This must be done. Otherwise, we just swim around a pool of misdirection and murkiness with no clear direction or guide in sight. Again, what does Allah tell us? وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيَخْشَ اللَّهَ وَيَتَّقْهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَائِزُونَ. And whoso obeys Allah and His Messenger and fears Allah and takes Him as a shield for protection, it is they who will be faizun, successful. As humanity continues to contrive new forms of novelty for entertainment and temporal pleasure, it is our duty as Ahmadi Muslims, as those who have accepted the guidance of Allah Almighty, to inform the world of where true peace lies, and that the souls of the people, their hearts and their mind, will only find rest in that which is everlasting. The world and its glamour will always fade. The antidepressant industry and market is now edging over 15 billion US dollars. Suicide and self-harm rates are rapidly increasing with a disturbing risk to the youth. This dramatic rise began to occur around 2010. Researchers who have been sounding the alarm bells say the only coherent explanation for this sudden rise is internet and social media use. The family structure is losing its significance. And even more heartbreaking is a new wave of thought beginning to emerge that, God forbid, marriage and even children hold you back from accomplishing your dreams. They prevent you from achieving happiness and career success, hollow as it may be. Study after study shows the repercussions of growing up without a stable family. A wide array of societal deviance is associated with either no family life or an unstable family upbringing. The opposite is true. The surest way of having good and well-principled citizens for the future running of any nation is through the family system. And it is ultimately Islamic values that can and will provide the best version of these attributes to the world. Allah Almighty asked us to look beyond this world and to the next. He asked us to give rights to our family, our spouses, our children. He commands the world to not chase after the respect and prestige of mere mortals. We disobeyed, and now we suffer. Let's take a moment and reflect on all this. Is this the freedom that we were promised? Is this the independence that we crave, that we are socialized and brainwashed into craving? We say otherwise. But corporations who drive profits off of our never-ending consumerism and frustrations might say another. We have the guidance of Allah Almighty, which He says is a furqan, meaning a distinguisher, to describe what is right and what is not, what matters and what doesn't, what is true and what is a hoax. Alhamdulillah, it is the mercy and grace of Allah that we are free from this whirlwind of aimless endeavors. Throughout time, Allah Almighty has been sending His prophets to bring His creation back towards what really matters, that life is short, and to find hope that we will be rewarded for the good things that we do and for the pain that we endure. But on the flip side, we will be questioned. As to this responsibility of upholding God's teaching, we will be questioned about our loyalty, about our obedience. You want an entry ticket into Jannat and be in the company of Allah Almighty, then you'll have to pay up. Nobody can just waltz in because they feel like it. You have to be about it. The world was given Rasulullah Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam for its guidance. Then once again, in these latter days of confusion and tempt, Allah Almighty's mercy roared once again and gave us the promised Messiah ﷺ, a fortress to guard ourselves against the new waves of attack from shaitan. But with the passing of the promised Messiah ﷺ, we were not left for ourselves. This time, the story was going to be different. We were carried, nurtured, protected, and then advanced by the Khulafa. They are now what will carry the mission of Allah forward. You might be thinking at this moment, here come more words about obedience to Khilafat. The same message again and again. And you'd be exactly right. Because now, where else do we turn? The messengers of Allah take people out of that pit and abyss of a meaningless material life. They grant foresight that actions have consequences in this life and the next, and that chasing after the respect and prestige of society or the latest fads and trends of fashion and lifestyle, this will bring nothing. When we all go 6 feet under, we are as bare as we came into this world. This realization gives rise to a sense of duty to make use of the small time we have on this earth. It gives rise to noble characteristics of dignity, of honor, of responsibility, in realizing that when you point a finger, you have 3 pointing right back at you. It allows man to push themselves, to sacrifice their wealth and honor for the greater good of all. When we forsake those whom Allah has sent, whether His prophets or their Khalifa, what we give up is the best possible version of ourselves. We let go of what could have been. Hazrat Muhammad Deen Saab was an early missionary that was sent to the United States. Hazrat Muslim Maud Anhu advised him in the following way. He says, quote, "There is no reliability of life. Make sure to remember that we are not admirers of people. We are people of God. At all times, make obedience to any individual who sits on the throne of Khilafat your part and parcel, and instill this exact same spirit in those within your influence. Islam was destroyed due to division, and still it is its greatest enemy. I wish," he says, "that man would do away with that conscience that makes him sacrifice the good of the movement for personal reasons, even when it could be that they desire to make something happen out of a sincere intention. Although, as the hadith says, "Man faraka al-Jama'at falaysa minni," meaning that whoever creates divisions in the Jama'at is not from among me. End quote. It is only the teachings of Allah that can bring people back from barreling towards their own ruin. If we are to help the world in this effort and in turn secure our afterlife, then we need a unified effort. All teams need a leader. And for our task, our leader is our Khalifa. It is simple. Obedience to Khalifa, his directives, and the spirit he wishes to instill in us is now the way to God. There is no other way to look at this situation. The world might not be aware of this, but as the promised Messiah ﷺ says, if 2 people drink a cup of poison and one knows that it's poison and the other does not, they both still die. Now, at all times, shaitan is lurking, creating doubts in our minds, playing and toying with us to take us away from the path of Allah Almighty. We run into a question that, is this one man really the answer? This is the answer to the world, just doing what they say? How is it that we can enslave ourselves to one individual and be at their beck and call, even if we don't understand? A false sense of righteousness is often inflamed, that how dare somebody make me a slave to this? And we might express that our supposed rationality and free thought is the answer. We should be honest. Have we not heard this voice from inside of us? Let's run a small thought experiment. If at this moment you receive a call You turn the phone over, you pull it out of your pocket, and on it is the CEO of your company. Now, with straightforward honesty, how many of us can say with certainty that we would not get up from our spot, not even flinch to answer the call? How many of us will have the guts to send them a text, I'm at a religious gathering, why don't you call me back later? After this, can we tell anyone that we shouldn't be obedient to one man? When it comes to the paycheck, the colors of loyalty begin to fade in and out. Once a fellow Khadim brother expressed in a jovial tone that when my boss asks me to jump, I say how high. And then with this thinking, with insincere intentions, we'll question Khilafat, projecting that we have broken free from the sheep that is everyone else. We should save ourselves from such an undignified state, as it is unbecoming of a believer of Allah Almighty. Let's say that we're standing in front of a judge. The sentence is passed. Can any of us say that, respected judge, since you are a human and you are in fact not infallible, you make mistakes like all of us, and now, since your authority is not that concrete, I will simply reject this sentencing and walk on home. Nobody does this. What do we do instead? We obey. The judge is in fact human. They are in fact imperfect and represents the authority of our nation. But our country is not divine. It hasn't been crafted by God Himself, yet we go along with it. Our entire lives, we recite the Pledge of Allegiance in school. Are we not made to obey an entity that has not proven its worth to us? But in these matters, there is no hue and cry. We just stroll along. It's not to shame anyone. It would be understandable if your CEO called and we got up and left. It is to make a point that the question is not why we have to obey just one person. The question is, why are you picking and choosing? Walking in stride with Khilafat does not mean that someone is blindly obedient. This is a naive and arrogant understanding that lacks a real recognition of one's real priorities, which is to find and build a connection with Allah. This obedience is out of love, out of a desire to change, out of a hope of a better future. Our opponents would like to label ourselves as na'uzubillah, a cult with an irrational stress on obedience. We should be all aware and be firm in responding that this is a short-sighted and propagandistic mischaracterization of us. A cult does not invite government officials to their gatherings like we do. It does not boldly proclaim itself to be the truth, spread it to all, and then invite them to Jalsa such as this very one. They don't open satellite channels like MTA in 7, 8, 9 languages, then broadcast them on the airwaves and internet for the world to see. The Promised Messiah ﷺ used to passionately invite people to visit him, to see the truth for themselves. And even today, the meetings of Khalifatul Masih Ayatollah bin Nasr al-Aziz are recorded and put online for all to see. It's time that we put this shallow and phony stance to a rest. Just because we have an internal discipline system does not mean that we are what they say we are. We have united in a task to reform ourselves and the world. We sold ourselves to the demands and requirements of this by doing bai'at, allegiance. We do not get to decide if this path is the right one. Only we get to decide if we wish to walk upon it or not. Yes, perhaps, to bring someone back onto the path, a firmer measure is taken. But it is done in the same light. A parent disciplines a child. It kills them inside, and it hurts. But if a parent was to not slap away the hand of a child from fire because it might hurt their hand, then ask, are they really looking out for them? The parent is in fact trying to make them obey for their own good, not to bring annoyance to their life. In our lives, if your priority is leisure, then we obey streaming services, standing guard, ever ready at 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning to binge watch some meaningless series, to show leisure our loyalty, that we will be there at all times. If our priority is greed and in having a LinkedIn profile that will be the envy of all to see, We are standing ever ready to obey our corporate heads. We memorize the handbook through and through, wearing our company's jackets and gear diligently, following the dress code and a plethora of other terms and policies and conditions. Perhaps there can be a retort that, well, we claim Khilafat to be divine. It can't make a mistake. It has to be perfect. But these things just mentioned are not divine, yet we still give it all up for them. If the problem is that it is divine and must live up to standards, then surely something that isn't even divine in the first place isn't even worthy of your attention. But do we quit our jobs because our bosses are humans? Do we say we won't go to a hospital because I heard a doctor made a mistake one time? Let's not become walking contradictions. Regarding this, as a Muslim Maud says, it is possible for a Khalifa to commit an error in his personal matters. However, in matters upon which relies the spiritual and physical progress of the Jama'at, Allah protects His Jama'at from any adverse effects, even if a mistake is made. Allah somehow makes the Khalifa aware of a mistake. Sufis term this as ismatik sughra, minor infallibility, and is a characteristics of the Khulafa, whereas prophets are bestowed with ismatik kubra, major infallibility. Hence, Allah does not let Khulafa make such an error that can result in adversity for the Jama'at. As a Muslim Maud, there's a passage of a Muslim Maud that is particularly powerful and maybe perhaps even hard to stomach. But medicine is often many times hard to bear. In this passage, he is discussing how Allah Almighty has made Adam alayhi salam, who serves as a representation of the entirety of the human race, a Khalifa. This is because we have, as humans, have the ability to best reflect the attributes of Allah by choosing to follow Him. And so we, quote, succeed God by bringing Him to the world. Hazrat Muslim Maud says, quote, remember that when Adam alayhi salam was made the Khalifa, he, meaning God, said, I am placing a Khalifa on earth. What did the angels gain by criticizing this? Go ahead and read in the Quran. You will see that angels went into a state where they ended up saying, holy are you, we have no knowledge. So then, who are you to raise allegations against me? He says, I have told you again and again, and showed from the Quran as well, that creating a Khalifa is not the duty of man. Instead, it is the work of God. Who made Adam the Khalifa? God did. The angels objected to Adam's Khilafat, saying he will create disorder on earth and that he will shed blood. But what fruit did they gain from objecting? You can read in the Quran that at the end, they had to prostrate in front of Adam. He continues, so if anyone raises objections against me, and that objector be an angel itself, then I will tell it to bow down in front of the Khilafat of Adam. This will be better for it. If it takes aba, meaning refusal, and istikbar, arrogance, and turns into Iblis, then it should consider, what did Iblis gain from opposing Adam's Khilafat? I say again, if someone in the likeness of an angel even raises objections against my Khilafat, then someone dutiful would tell them, bow in front of Adam. And if he be an Iblis, he will be thrown from the court. Dear listeners, Allah says to us in the Holy Quran, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. Obey Allah and His Messenger so that you may be shown mercy. Turhamun, that you may be shown mercy. The opposite of obedience is actually anxiety, frustration, wrath, punishment. Mercy makes us content with what we have. Disobedience makes us petty about it. The choice is ours. Either be a slave to society, to ourselves, or to Allah, and by extension, His chosen ones. The world charms us with slogans such as, the world is an open book, write your story. But the fact is, this book only belongs to God. This story is His to write. And at the end, only He sits on the throne. Obedience and submission makes us feel that we are being defeated and conquered, but truthfully, It's realizing that it's not all about you and allowing yourself to be guided. We should walk away with the sense of relaxation, and that the uneasiness that we feel as to where life will go, who will tell you what is right, on what authority, for what reason do they have that sanction in this storm. Choose your master, choose your creator, trust and open your heart for him who sent you here and for him who you will return to. And we will find peace in that submission that will make this world appear exactly for what it is, a plaything and a distraction in the way of you and Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.